Okay, here's a question for you. If you gradually replace every single part of an object, is it still the same object?
Seems simple on the surface, doesn't it?
It really does. But it unravels fast into, well, one of the most profound philosophical puzzles out there.
Absolutely.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the ship of Theseus paradox. It's this ancient Greek thought experiment. Plutarch wrote about it concerning Theseus's ship, the hero.
The Minotaur Slayer, right.
Yeah.
His ship was supposedly preserved for centuries, but they had to keep replacing the old wooden planks as they decayed.
Exactly. So our mission today is to explore the history here, unpack the core philosophical problems, look at the different solutions people have come up with.
And really see how it connects to our world now. Things like personal identity, technology, it touches on a lot.
Right. We want to give you a clear sense of what it really means for something, or, even someone, to be the same across time. Okay, let's get into it. So the story starts with Theseus, this legendary hero of Athens, slayed the Minotaur, came back a hero.
And as a memorial, they kept his ship in the Athenian harbor, preserved it for, well, centuries, according to the story.
But wood rots.
It does. And that's where the paradox begins. Over these centuries, the ship's planks decayed, and they were gradually replaced. Let's simplify it, just for the thought experiment. Imagine the ship has exactly 1,000 planks.
Okay, 1,000 planks.
And each year, just one plank is replaced with a new one. So after year one, you've got 999 original planks and one new one. Is it still the ship of Theseus?
I mean, yeah, intuitively you'd say yes, it's just one plank.
Most people would, but keep that going.
Yeah.
For 1,000 years, each year, another plank gets replaced. By year 1,000,
All the original planks are gone.
every single one. Let's call this ship, the one that's been continuously repaired, Ship A. So the big question is, how can Ship A be the real ship of Theseus if it doesn't share any of the original physical material?
Right, that's the immediate problem. It makes you ask, well, when did it stop being the original? Was it after the first plank, the 500th, or did it ever stop?
That's the initial puzzle.
But then, oh, this is where it gets really interesting. Thomas Hobbes, the 17th century English philosopher, he throws a major wrench in the works.
He really does. Hobbes adds a second scenario. Imagine there's this, let's say, a very meticulous ship repairman
Okay.
who collects all the old original planks that were removed from the ship of Theseus over those 1,000 years. He keeps them safe.
Right, the discarded ones.
Exactly. Then, at year 1,000, he takes all those original planks and builds an exact replica of the ship. Same design, same materials, same arrangement. Let's call this ship, the one built from all the original parts, Ship B.
Whoa, okay. So now at the end of the 1,000 years, we have two ships.
Two ships. Ship A, sitting in the harbor looking like the memorial but made of entirely new planks. And Ship B, maybe hidden away somewhere but built from all the original planks.
Okay, so now we really have a problem. Ship A seems like the ship of Theseus because, well, it's the one that was continuously there, fulfilling its function.
Right, continuity of form and function.
Yeah. But ship B, it's made of all the original stuff. It feels like that should be the real one, too.
Precisely. Both have a really strong claim. But they can't both be the single identical ship of Theseus, can they? That leads to what philosophers sometimes call the problem of duplication.
Or two identities. How do you possibly choose?
Well, that's the puzzle. It basically arises because we have these two really strong, intuitive beliefs about identity that seem to clash here.
Okay, what are they?
The first one we can call the change principle. It's just the common sense idea that ordinary things can survive gradual change. Like your coat, you replace a button, maybe patch a hole, it's still your coat.
Sure, that makes sense.
And this principle, it really supports the idea that Ship A, the repaired one, is the ship of Theseus. It just underwent gradual change.
Okay, so what's the second principle?
The second one is the parts principle. This is the intuition that an object fundamentally is tied to its parts. An object goes where its parts go, especially if they stay in the same arrangement.
Ah, so the identity is in the matter itself.
Kind of, yeah. And this principle strongly suggests that Ship B, the one rebuilt from all the original planks, must be the real ship of Theseus.
And they can't both be true here. That's the core tension. These two perfectly reasonable ideas just collide head-on in this scenario.
Exactly. And it's crucial to say up front, there's no single easy answer that everyone agrees on.
Right, it's not like solving a math problem.
Not at all. Any path you take, any solution you propose, usually depends on your underlying philosophical ideas and, honestly, Each one comes with its own set of problems or counterintuitive consequences.
So it's less about finding the answer and more about understanding the trade-offs involved in how we think about identity and change.
That's a great way to put it. We're exploring the frameworks. So let's look at some of the main ways philosophers have tried to tackle this.
Okay.
One broad approach is to basically question our gut feelings, those common sense intuitions we just talked about.
Like denying one of those principles.
Exactly. For instance, some philosophers say, let's just deny the parts principle. They argue that ship B, the one made of the old original parts, is simply not the ship of Theseus, even though it has all the original matter.
But that feels weird. Like you said, if someone rebuilt me from my original atoms, wouldn't that be me? Why is it easier to dismiss the ship's original parts?
It definitely pushes against that strong intuition tying identity to the original substance. It feels unsatisfying to many. Okay, so another way is to challenge the change principle.
The idea that things survive gradual change.
Right. One way to do this is to say, okay, the ship of Theseus was destroyed at some point during the repairs. Maybe when the 501st plank was replaced, poof, it ceased to exist.
But when? Why plank 501 and not 500 or 502? It seems totally arbitrary.
That's the problem. It's the arbitrary cutoff issue. It's like the Sorite's paradox. How many grains of sand do you need to take away from a heap before it stops being a heap? There's no clear line.
Yeah, that feels like just avoiding the question, almost.
It can feel that way. Now, there's an even more extreme version of denying the change principle. Roderick Chisholm, inspired by Bishop Butler, argued that ordinary objects never survive any change whatsoever.
Wait, any change. So the moment the first plank was removed?
The original ship of Theseus was destroyed, and a new, slightly different ship came into existence. And when the second plank was replaced, that ship was destroyed, and another new one appeared.
So over the 1,000 years, there wasn't one ship being repaired, but a sequence of 1,000 different ships.
According to this view, yes.
Wow. That really goes against how we experience the world, doesn't it? My car doesn't become a new car every time I replace the oil filter.
It's highly counterintuitive. That's the main disadvantage. It suggests a constant destruction and recreation that doesn't match our perception of persisting objects.
Okay, so those approaches mess with our basic ideas about parts and change. What else is there?
Well, some approaches get even more fundamental. They question basic logic. One idea is to say maybe both ship A and ship B are the ship of Theseus.
But how? They aren't the same ship as each other.
Exactly. To make this work, you have to reject a fundamental principle of logic called the transitivity of identity.
Okay, what's that?
It's the simple idea that if A is identical to B and B is identical to C, then A must be identical to C. Like, if the morning star is Venus and the evening star is Venus, then the morning star is the evening star.
Right, that seems pretty solid.
But this solution says ship A is identical to the original ship of Theseus at year 0, and the original ship of Theseus at year 0 is identical to ship B, but ship A is not identical to ship B.
So A equals B, B equals C, but A doesn't equal C. That breaks logic, doesn't it?
It challenges a very foundational logical rule. That's a pretty big bullet to bite, philosophically speaking. It suggests identity might work in stranger ways than we assume.
Definitely feels like shaking the foundations. Okay, what else? You mentioned something about worms.
Ah, yes, the worm theory, or temporal parts theory. This one is really different. It asks us to fundamentally rethink what an object is.
How so?
It proposes that objects aren't just three-dimensional things existing wholly at one point in time. Instead, they are four-dimensional entities. They have spatial dimensions, length, width, height, and a temporal dimension. They exist across time like a worm stretching through time.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this. So me isn't just me right now, but the entire me stretching from birth to death, like a whole timeline.
That's the idea. You are the whole four-dimensional space-time worm. And the ship of Theseus is also a space-time worm.
So how does that solve the paradox with ship A and ship B?
Well, from this four-dimensional view, ship A and ship B aren't two distinct ships competing for the identity of the original. Instead, you can see them as different temporal parts or stages of the same larger branching space-time worm that represents the ship of Theseus over its entire history. The worm starts at year 0, then branches off when the parts are reused.
So they both share the same origin point in space-time.
Something like that. It avoids breaking transitivity or denying the other principles, but the cost is adopting this quite radical view of what objects are these four-dimensional worms rather than things fully present at each moment.
That is mind-bending. Okay, any other angles? More modern takes?
Yes. Several perspectives look at it less as a deep metaphysical problem and more about how we think, talk, or categorize. One idea is that constitution is not identity.
Meaning the planks aren't the ship.
Essentially, yes. The lump of bronze isn't identical to the statue made from it, they just occupy the same space. The material constitutes the object, but isn't the same thing as the object. So ship B is just the original matter rearranged, not the original ship itself.
Interesting. And you mentioned cognitive science. Does it suggest the problem is more in our heads?
That's definitely a line of thought. Some cognitive scientists or philosophers influenced by them argue the paradox pops up because we mistakenly project our mental categories onto the world, extreme externalism, or maybe our intuition is just flawed in these edge cases.
So our brains create a sense of continuity for the ship, like an organizational structure, and that's what we call its identity.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. Perceptual continuity matters. Then there's deflationism, which basically says this whole debate is just about words.
Just semantics. Like, what do we mean by ship or same?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It argues there's no deep fact of the matter, just different ways we can choose to use language. If we define ship by function, ship A is it. If by original parts, ship B is it. It's a verbal dispute, not a real puzzle about reality.
Okay, and functionalism.
Functionalism focuses specifically on, well, function. It proposes identity is tied to the role an object plays or the function it performs. Ship A, the one continuously repaired and serving as the memorial, keeps the function of the ship of Theseus.
So because it acts like the ship of Theseus, it is the ship of Theseus, regardless of its parts.
That's the core idea. Its identity lies in its role in the system or its purpose. And finally, a related view is the semantic view. Identity is just a label we apply. The ship is simply the thing we consistently call the ship of Theseus. Its identity is constructed by us in our minds and language.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of different angles. So beyond these philosophical arguments about ships, what does this mean for us? How does this ancient puzzle actually connect to our lives?
Oh, profoundly. It forces us to think about identity in so many areas.
Let's start with the biggest one, personal identity. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Your cells have almost completely changed.
Right. Scientists estimate most cells will replace themselves roughly every 7 years, or that 98% of our atoms turn over annually. If your physical body's constantly being rebuilt, what makes you you over time?
Is it just the continuity, like ship A?
That's one angle. It echoes Heraclitus, the ancient Greek, who said you can't step into the same river twice everything flows, including us. Identity is perhaps more fluid than we think.
But what about memory? John Locke famously argued that our consciousness, our memory of past experiences, is what links our present self to our past self.
A powerful idea. But it raises tricky questions, too. If someone develops severe amnesia, are they literally a different person?
Yeah, and think about futuristic stuff, like uploading your consciousness to a computer. Or even science fiction, like Star Trek's transporters. If they disassemble you and reassemble you somewhere else, is that copy still you?
Exactly. Where does the you-ness reside? Is it the pattern, the matter, the continuity of consciousness? The ship of Theseus primes us for all these modern dilemmas?
You mentioned Jordan Peterson earlier, too, having a different take.
Yes, he talks about identity less as a static thing you are and more as a process you engage in. He frames it as the force within us that learns, adapts, confronts chaos, and regenerates. It's about taking responsibility for that process of becoming.
So identity isn't the state, but the transformation itself, the way we navigate change.
In his view, yes. It emphasizes agency. It connects a bit to Zen ideas, too. Like, the eternal now identity isn't fixed in the past or future, but in the ongoing process of the present.
That really reframes the ship paradox, too. Maybe the identity isn't in the planks at all, old or new, but in the continuous act of preservation, the commitment to maintaining the memorial, the response to decay.
That's a fascinating interpretation. The responsible action itself carries the continuity.
And this isn't just about people. What about technology? My laptop, I've replaced the battery, the hard drive, maybe even the screen over the years. Is it still the same laptop I bought?
Great example. Or think about the classic grandfather's axe problem. If you replace the handle and then later you replace the head, is it still grandfather's axe?
Or Trigger's broom from Only Fools and Horses. Had 17 new heads and 14 new handles.
Exactly. It's the same puzzle. And culturally, look at the Ai's Grand Shrine in Japan. It's completely rebuilt with new wood every 20 years, yet it's considered the same ancient shrine. The continuity there is spiritual, ritualistic, not material.
That's incredible. It shows how context and belief shape our idea of sameness.
Absolutely. Even in software development, you have versions and forks. When code changes significantly, it can branch off a new identity emerges from the old one. It's another modern analogy for the Theseus problem.
And I guess there are even legal implications. Like if a stolen ship has all its parts replaced, is it legally the same stolen property?
Potentially, yes. The identity of objects can definitely be a point of legal contention.
So after all this, where do we land? Is there any consensus?
Honestly, no. There's no single, universally accepted answer. And maybe that's the point. The ship of Theseus paradox persists precisely because it highlights how difficult, maybe even impossible it is, to pin down a perfect definition of sameness over time, especially when change is involved.
It really pushes the limits of our language, our logic, our intuitions. It forces us to question things we take for granted, like transitivity, or makes us rethink what an object fundamentally is. And it shows how attached we are to that parts principle, the idea that the original stuff matters most.
That's right. And choosing any one solution forces you to accept its consequences, its disadvantages. If you go with the worm theory, you have to buy into four-dimensional objects. If you deny change, you contradict everyday experience. There's always a philosophical cost.
So let's wrap this up. The ship of Theseus, it's clearly much more than just an old riddle about a boat. It's like a timeless mirror, reflecting these huge questions about change, about persistence, about what identity really means for objects, for technology, for ourselves.
It absolutely is. Its power lies in making us stop and think critically about how we define things, how we navigate a world that's constantly in flux, and how new technologies keep challenging our old ideas of what it means to be the same.
So here's a final thought for you listening right now. If identity, maybe even your identity, is more like a dynamic process, like that ongoing transformation rather than some fixed thing, what does that mean for how you live? How does that change how you approach your own growth or adapt to new situations or even see your relationships? Thinking about your life as a journey, what parts of your ship are you consciously choosing to repair, replace, or preserve along the way?